The medbay doors slid open with a faint hiss, and Dr. Pendick's sensory tendrils tensed at the sight before him. Leaning casually against the wall, looking mildly irritated, stood a human, a tall, broad-shouldered individual with a dried streak of green blood on his arm. Dr. Pendick recognized the wound classification CB, a potentially critical injury, from his limited studies in human biology. "Doctor," the human greeted, glancing around the sterile, green-lit room. "It's nothing serious, just a scratch, but I was told to report here." Dr. Pendick's optical lenses expanded in surprise. "Just a scratch?" There had to be an error with the translation software. The human looked injured and didn't seem aware, or worse, he might be in a state of shock. Humans had a remarkable habit of downplaying injuries, a quirk Dr. Pendick had learned about in his human biology for Galactic practitioners class, but encountering it firsthand was different. "Medics!" Pendick called out, his voice ringing down the metallic corridor. Within moments, two assistants, Fleck and Dorica, rushed in, arms loaded with various medical supplies, adhesive foam, regenerative gel pods, and a tray of soothing crystals rumored to be beneficial in human treatment. "We have a code scratch," Dr. Pendick announced. The human, whose name tag identified him as Gordy, began to raise a hand in reassurance. "Seriously, it's no big deal," he said, but the intensity of the alien staff's response seemed to surprise him. As an engineer with extensive experience in alien encounters, Gordy was usually unfazed by unusual situations, though even he appeared a bit uncertain in the face of their urgency. "Please, Officer Gordy," Dr. Pendick urged, his tendrils quivering. "Save your strength. We don't know how much time you have." Fleck, a new recruit still uneasy around human biology, approached Gordy with a shaky suction device. "What exactly is that for?" Gordy asked, eyeing the machine warily. "It will stabilize your system, Officer Gordy," Dr. Pendick explained with solemnity. "We can't risk further cellular deterioration." With a resigned sigh, Gordy rolled up his sleeve, allowing the device to attach to his arm. It hummed to life, gripping his skin with a surprising amount of force, making him wince. Doc, that's not really how we handle minor cuts," he said, grimacing. Dr. Pendick shared a concerned look with Dorica. "Did you hear that?" he murmured. "An ow. I believe that translates to pain level 4? Dorica nodded, reaching for a vial of glowing alien gel, a multipurpose substance that recent interspecies medical studies suggested could calm human skin. Ignoring Gordy's increasingly skeptical expression, Dr. Pendick coated his arm generously in the gel. The substance glowed in a vibrant turquoise hue against Gordy's skin, filling the air with a faint smell of singed rubber. "Ah, that's, refreshing," Gordy said, sniffing at his arm with a wry grin. "Smells like my Uncle Dave's Buick after it caught fire." "Good times." Dr. Pendick's tendrils quivered in alarm. The human was speaking in confusing images. Was this the onset of delirium? "His condition is worsening," he whispered urgently to Fleck, who nodded with the intensity of someone with no clue what to do next. "Don't worry, Officer Gordy," Dorica said in a calming voice. "We're moving to the next stage, levitation therapy." "Fleck, bring the crystals." Gordy raised his eyebrows as Fleck rushed over with a set of purple crystals, arranging them in a ring around Gordy's feet. The crystals floated, forming a synchronized circle of glowing, rotating stones. "You seriously think this is gonna help?" Gordy asked, glancing down at the crystals with equal parts curiosity and trepidation. Dr. Pendick held his hands in a solemn gesture, focusing intently on the floating stones. "Human legend speaks of levitation as a way to restore the spirit. This will aid in your recovery." "Alright, so," Gordy said, trying not to laugh, "pretty sure that levitation therapy thing was something we humans tossed on the intergalactic knowledge page as a joke. Also, I don't think a scratch needs any kind of spiritual healing." The three aliens exchanged mystified glances. Humans were notoriously vague, and joking was a concept they had yet to fully comprehend. Dr. Pendick looked back at Gordy, determined. "Please, Officer Gordy, don't downplay your injury. We understand your culture prizes resilience, but we recognize the depth of your suffering." At this, Gordy couldn't hold back his laughter. "Downplaying pain? Doc, if anything, you're making it worse." He chuckled as Fleck hesitantly added more crystals to the ring. Dorica, desperate to help her first human patient, leaned closer and whispered, "Should we proceed with the soul-binding chant? I read that saying a human's name can anchor them to this world in times of extreme danger." "No chanting necessary," Gordy said, chuckling. "Just stick a band-aid on, and I'll be out of here in a minute." Dr. Pendick froze. "Fleck, document this term, band-aid. A ceremonial ritual, possibly for healing. We must study its cultural significance. Gordy shook his head, still grinning. Look, I appreciate the effort, but when a human says just a scratch, we're really saying it's nothing serious. No ceremonies needed. But to Dr. Pendick, Gordy's words sounded like a stoic farewell. Fleck carefully added Band-Aid to the glossary while Gordy watched, thoroughly entertained by the spectacle. Aliens, he muttered with an amused grin. Only you could turn a paper cut into an epic drama. Quite right, Dr. Pendick replied earnestly, entirely missing the reference. Dr. Pendick turned to his team with a sense of purpose. Prepare for Phase 3. This Band-Aid ceremony sounds essential. Let's recreate it as closely as possible. Onward. Gordy sat in the medbay, his arms slick with alien slime gel, encircled by levitating crystals. Each attempt he made to reassure the alien medics only spurred them on. Convinced his calm words were some kind of human code for, "I'm on the brink of death," Dr. Pendick gestured with his tendrils, initiating the next phase. Activate the biocrio exegel, he commanded. Fleck darted to a cabinet and returned holding a jar of thick, blue, humming gel, which jiggled ominously. Gordy eyed it warily. Doc, what exactly is that stuff?" Dr. Pendick's lenses gleamed with pride. "This is biocrio exegel, the pinnacle of cellular restoration. We usually reserve it for lost limbs or major neural injuries, but in your case," he said, casting a sympathetic look at Gordy's minor cut, "we're making an exception." Gordy's eyes widened. "Seriously? Guys, this is overkill. I don't even need stitches." But before Gordy could protest further, Fleck dabbed a chunk of the gel onto his arm. A shock of cold surged through his skin, spreading up his shoulder like he'd plunged his arm into liquid ice. He yelped, recoiling. "Whoa, that's freezing." Gordy shivered. "Feels like dunking my arm in freezer-burned ice cream." The aliens gasped. "The gel's cryofunction is too intense," Dr. Pendick cried. "Fleck, initiate warmth inversion therapy." Fleck quickly grabbed a device resembling a futuristic hairdryer and aimed it at Gordy's arm. A powerful blast of warm air hit the gel, melting it into a gooey, dripping mess. "Doc, I'm really not sure this is helping," Gordy muttered as the warm, sticky gel trickled down his arm. Clearly flustered, Dr. Pendick grabbed yet another tool, a plasma-based heat wrap, and wrapped it snugly over the remains of the gel. The wrap hummed, vibrating gently while radiating an odd warmth. Gordy grit his teeth against the bizarre sensation. "I appreciate the dedication, really, but I don't need." "Please, Officer Gordy," Dorica interrupted, her voice thick with worry. "Try not to overexert yourself. We're nearly through the critical phase." The plasma wrap pulsed, sending alternating waves of heat along his arm. Gordy felt a tingling sensation creep from his hand to his neck. Suddenly, his arm began to glow a faint pink. Why is my arm glowing?" he asked, staring wide-eyed at his arm and then at the aliens. Dr. Pendick, completely unbothered, gave an approving nod. "Excellent. The glow signifies an infusion of cellular energy. The plasma wrap is designed to recharge depleted structures in emergencies." Gordy let out an incredulous laugh. "Recharge? Doc, I'm not a battery. This is just a little cut, not a complete energy overhaul." Ignoring Gordy's objections, Fleck leaned in, eyes brimming with curiosity. "Do you feel improved?" he asked with a mix of awe and eagerness. Gordy exhaled, exasperated. "Well, let's see. I'm freezing, sticky, and glowing like a low-budget flashlight." "So no, not exactly." Dr. Pendick and Dorica exchanged troubled glances. Gordy's apparent lack of recovery was clearly concerning them. Fleck leaned close to Dorica, whispering something that made her eyes light up. "Of course, Dr. Pendick, we must be missing the vital element of human recovery, chemical stimulation." Dr. Pendick's tendrils twitched with enthusiasm. "Yes, humans often resort to chemical aids during physical distress." He turned to Fleck. "Prepare the Stimulaflex." Fleck hurried to a cabinet, pulling out a vial of swirling green liquid with a bold label in alien script that read, "Not for human use." Gordy's eyes widened. Doc, if it says not for human use, maybe we skip it. I really don't need any alien power-ups." But Dr. Pendick was undeterred, focused intently on the vial. "This formula should rejuvenate your essence, Officer Gordy, a vital measure under these grave conditions." Before Gordy could protest, Fleck had already placed a small drop of the green liquid on his tongue. The taste was indescribable, like spicy metal and burnt plastic, and in an instant, he felt an overwhelming surge of energy coursing through him, his heart pounding. "Oh wow," Gordy gasped, his eyes darting around wildly. "Feels like I just chugged 3 gallons of espresso." Dr. Pendick and Dorica watched him closely, interpreting his wide-eyed expression as a sign of progress. "It's working. His reflexes are clearly enhanced," Dr. Pendick said, nodding with satisfaction. "Working," Gordy muttered, gripping the edge of the examination table to keep from springing off it. "Doc, this is more like a caffeine-fueled nightmare," but the aliens watched with pride, oblivious to his discomfort. To them, his jittery movements and glowing skin were undeniable evidence of a medical triumph. Fleck even clapped, as if Gordy's reaction was a monumental success. After several deep breaths, Gordy's heart rate finally steadied. He glanced down at himself, the gel, the gently pulsating plasma wrap, and his faintly glowing skin, and sighed, caught between amusement and frustration. "All right, Doc," he said, "is that it? Can I go?" Dr. Pendick's gaze sparkled with determination. "Almost, Officer Gordy. We must conduct a final scan. We couldn't possibly release you without ensuring complete internal stability." Gordy chuckled, shaking his head. "Doc, I'm pretty sure you'd insist on a full-body scan if I stubbed my toe. But hey, whatever helps you sleep at night." Pendick nodded with all seriousness. Indeed, scans are paramount. He activated a small device that hovered over Gordy, emitting a series of soft beeps as it ran its check. When the scan completed, Pendick sighed with what seemed to be profound relief. "You're fortunate, Officer Gordy," he said solemnly. "This wound, though harrowing, has not compromised any critical systems." Gordy rolled his eyes. "Yep, document. Just a regular old scratch. But, Officer Gordy, doesn't this disregard for physical discomfort lead to emotional distress?" Dr. Pendick asked, genuinely bewildered. Gordy laughed. "Nah, document. We get banged up, shrug it off, and keep moving. We call it tough love." Dr. Pendick's tendrils twisted thoughtfully, as if his understanding of humanity was undergoing a seismic shift. "Remarkable. So, what we perceived as a call for critical care was a cultural difference." Harland nodded, a small smile breaking through her stern expression. "Exactly, Dr. Pendick. Humans have a tendency to downplay minor injuries. In fact, sometimes, making a fuss over it makes us feel worse." Dr. Pendick and his team exchanged uncertain glances. "Commander Harland, I must confess," he said, "this will require a significant revision in our understanding of human health practices. We assumed a scratch was an understated expression of severe trauma." Harland sighed, a mixture of exasperation and amusement in her eyes. "Well, now you know. Humans use a lot of understatement. I'd suggest adding that to your training." Dr. Pendick's tendrils gave a little twitch of determination. "Fleck, Dorica, document this vital cultural insight immediately. Add it to our human medical protocol. A scratch generally does not require advanced life-saving procedures." Gordy chuckled, glancing down at his still semi-glowing, gooey arm. "Glad we could clear that up, document, but next time maybe skip the sci-fi treatment show." Pendick nodded, his tendrils slightly drooping in embarrassment. "I apologize, Officer Gordy. We meant no harm, only to preserve your well-being." Gordy clapped him on the shoulder with his free hand. "No worries, document. You're just doing your job. And hey, now you've got a good story for the Galactic Medical Journal." As Gordy turned to leave, Harland threw him a wink. "Be careful out there, Gordy. If you stub a toe, Pendick might declare a medical emergency." Gordy laughed, giving her a mock salute. "Duly noted, Commander. But after today, I think I'll be avoiding scratches at all costs." As he walked out of the medbay, Dr. Pendick and his team watched him go, deep in thought. They had not only learned something new about human biology, but had also glimpsed the resilience and humor woven into the human psyche. And as he turned back to his staff, Pendick declared, "From this day forward, we shall respect the great human tradition of walking it off." Dr. Pendick tilted his head, tendrils twitching thoughtfully. "So, you feel pain, yet proceed as if nothing happened? Truly, your species' resilience surpasses all known logic." Harland chuckled. "Yep, that's humans for you. Now, could we maybe get this alien goo off his arm? I think he's had his fill of alien healthcare for today." Dorica gasped, horrified at the suggestion. "But Commander, the biocrioexegel is a rare, high-grade treatment. It must remain in place for the full 20-hour regeneration cycle." Gordy shot Harland a pleading look. "Please, Commander, just get this thing off me." With a sympathetic nod, Harland turned back to the alien medics. "Look, we're grateful for your dedication, but all Officer Gordy needs here is for this gel to come off and maybe a simple bandage." Dr. Pendick's tendrils stiffened in confusion. "A bandage? Are you referring to the Band-Aid ritual that Officer Gordy mentioned?" Gordy stifled a laugh. "Yeah, the Band-Aid ritual. That's exactly what I need." Harland gave him a warning look, her expression clearly saying don't encourage them, but Dr. Pendick took her comment seriously. "Understood, Commander. We shall commence the Band-Aid ritual." Fleck, retrieve the ceremonial adhesive. Gordy blinked, torn between amusement and exasperation, as Fleck scurried back with a strange roll of shimmering tape. Dr. Pendick unwound it with reverence, applying it to Gordy's arm with exaggerated exaggerated care. There, Pendic declared, stepping back proudly. The Band-Aid ritual is now complete. You may heal in peace, Officer Gordy. Harlan surveyed Gordy's arm, now wrapped in alien tape that glistened under the lights. Well, that'll do, she muttered. Dr. Pendic, visibly relieved, looked to Harlan. Thank you, Commander. We will remember this. It's just a scratch custom for future cases. He turned back to Gordy. May your recovery be swift, Officer. Gordy nodded, holding back a laugh. Thanks. Document glad to have you guys watching over me. As he and Harlan exited the medbay, he glanced at her, grinning. Did you see how seriously they took that Band-Aid ritual? Like they thought it was some sacred healing rite. Harlan smirked. In their way, I guess it was. Try to keep out of medbay next time, okay? Oh, believe me, I'll try. Gordy chuckled, but he knew that on this alien ship, any minor scrape would probably always spark a galaxy-sized medical response. As they walked down the corridor, he noticed a subtle shimmer trailing with each step. The alien adhesive reflected the lights, leaving a faint sparkling trail. He snorted. Next time, I'm putting no glittery arm wraps on my medbay list. Pardon, Officer Gordy? Asked Dorica, who had apparently followed him out, intently observing his every reaction. Nothing, he replied, attempting to wave her off, only to realize the adhesive restricted his arm movement. All he could do was laugh. Life on this alien ship would certainly never be boring. With a resigned sigh, Gordy gave Dorica a thumbs up, his only remaining option. All good, document. Dorica blinked, her wide violet eyes filled with wonder. I understand, she murmured. Humans often use nonverbal gestures to convey gratitude and resilience in extreme conditions. I shall record this. Gordy shook his head with a small smile and turned the corner, hoping to finally escape to the ship's common area for some peace. But he hadn't made it halfway down the corridor when he heard Dr. Pendic's voice calling after him. Officer Gordy, wait, there's one final step to confirm your stability. He paused, dreading whatever alien medical spectacle might come next, but also a bit curious. Doc, what more could you possibly need? You've covered me in gel, tried freezing me, turned me into a human glow stick, and now I'm wrapped like a glittery burrito. I think that covers it. Pendic tilted his head, clearly confused. A glittery burrito? Gordy chuckled. Forget it. Just tell me, what's the last step? Pendic raised a tendril with reverence, and Dorica stepped forward, holding a small holographic device that emitted a faint light. We must perform a psychic resonance reading, Pendic declared, to detect any lingering emotional impacts from your injury. A psychic? What? Gordy asked, raising an eyebrow. Dr. Pendic looked at him as if he'd just asked why the sky was blue. A psychic resonance reading. Humans are known to project emotional energy during intense experiences. It's just a scratch phenomenon could mask deeply hidden distress. Since you claim to walk it off, we must ensure there are no residual disturbances. Hidden distress? Gordy echoed, trying not to laugh. Doc, I've stubbed my toe worse than this. There's no hidden anything here. But Dr. Pendic had already activated the device, which hummed softly, surrounding Gordy's head with a faint glow. Dorica whispered to Fleck, who had reappeared, watching in fascination. After a few seconds, Pendic frowned at the device, adjusting the settings. Strange. It's detecting humor. He tapped the screen again, clearly puzzled. That can't be correct. How could humor be the primary emotion in response to such a serious injury? Fleck leaned in, looking equally bewildered. Perhaps it's malfunctioning? How could a human feel amused by a near-fatal wound? Near-fatal? Gordy managed between laughs. Doc, I promise, it's barely a scratch. Dorica's eyes shimmered with something resembling pity as she clutched her device. You're incredibly brave, Officer Gordy, to face such peril with humor. Truly admirable. Gordy stared at them, amazed by the sheer absurdity of the situation. Look, he said, trying a new angle, when humans say it's just a scratch, we mean it's really no big deal. We don't need psychic resonance readings or emotional stability tests, or any other contraption you have in here. Pendic studied him with a look of deep contemplation, as though attempting to decipher an ancient riddle. Are you absolutely certain, Officer Gordy? He asked. No hidden stress? No unprocessed trauma from this incident? Gordy rubbed his temples, his patience nearing its end. Yes, document, I'm sure. No hidden stress, no trauma. After a tense pause, Dr. Pendic finally nodded, though his tendrils still twitched with uncertainty. Very well, Officer Gordy. We shall accept your word. This time, Gordy breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, Document. I appreciate it. Pendic inclined his tendrils in a gesture that seemed almost like a bow. We'll endeavor to understand your customs better, Officer Gordy. Your resilience is humbling. Glad to help, Gordy said, grinning as he finally turned to leave. He could still hear Dorica's earnest voice behind him, noting down every detail of his courageous demeanor for future study. It was all he could do not to laugh as he muttered under his breath, "Alien medics, they're gonna be the death of me." One glittery burrito wrap at a time, Dr. Pendic nodded solemnly. Understood, Officer Gordy. Our new protocol should prevent any excessive interventions for minor human injuries. He looked down at the document, his tendrils twitching with a mix of pride and, perhaps, lingering confusion. This protocol marks a significant milestone for our medical team. We are determined to treat humans with the appropriate level of care, minimal in cases of just a scratch, as you advised. Gordy grinned, scanning the document Dorica had unrolled. The checklist was detailed, including items like confirm if human is using understatement and check for signs of actual distress before applying advanced treatment. Impressive work, team, he said, trying to keep a straight face. I feel safer already, Dorica beamed. Thank you, Officer Gordy. Your insights have paved the way for us to better serve the human crew. Well, Gordy said, leaning back with a chuckle, I'm just glad to avoid any future alien spa days every time I get a scratch. Dr. Pendic gave a respectful incline of his tendrils. Your humor is admittedly still perplexing, but we're beginning to understand it as another form of resilience. Rest assured, Officer Gordy, this minor injury protocol, Human Edition, will be implemented across the medical team. Gordy nodded, genuinely touched by their effort. Thanks, Document. I appreciate it. And hey, if you ever need a human to clarify any, sayings or quirks, you know where to find me. Pendic and his team offered a final respectful bow, their wide eyes full of admiration. As Gordy watched them exit, he shook his head with a smile. These aliens might overreact to a bruise, but their dedication and the earnest respect they showed him was something he'd never take for granted. As he settled back in his seat in the mess hall, he muttered to himself, yep, next time I stub my toe, I might just let them know. Could use a day off wrapped up in alien glitter tape. With a laugh, he dug into his meal, content in the knowledge that, with his alien comrades, things were never, ever boring. Dr. Pendic made an earnest note on his newly drafted protocol, underlining twice, no enhanced resonance healing for stubbed toes. Gordy watched him with an amused grin just as Harland walked in, eyeing the small gathering around him with a knowing smile. Oh, what's going on here? She asked, crossing her arms with a smirk. Just a new protocol, Gordy replied, chuckling. Doc here has officially declared human scrapes non-lethal. Is that right? Harland said, raising an eyebrow. Dr. Pendic nodded solemnly. Yes, Commander. We've come to understand that humans possess a unique resilience, something referred to as walking it off. Fascinating. Walking it off, Gordy muttered with a chuckle. Wait till you see us with a head cold. We're practically indestructible. The alien medics exchanged curious glances. This head cold, it's another form of human resilience training? Pendic asked, eyes wide. Harland laughed, shaking her head, sort of. But let's keep it simple for now. Document looks like you've got enough human mysteries to handle. Pendic's tendrils curled thoughtfully. Indeed, Commander. There's still so much we don't understand about human reactions to pain. Our next investigation will focus on something known as the sniffles. Harland laughed, patting Pendic on the back. Good luck with that. Document, the sniffles might just be your biggest puzzle yet. Gordy could barely contain his grin. And if you crack that, Doc, maybe you'll finally solve the mystery of the legendary man flu. Fleck's eyes widened. Is man flu a dangerous human illness? Gordy leaned in conspiratorially. Oh, it's feared by all, he said, fighting to keep a straight face. Some say it's worse than anything else in the galaxy. Dr. Pendic recorded the term as if he were documenting a galactic threat, while Harland laughed openly. Let's hope the next human injury on board doesn't spark an interstellar incident. Gordy lifted his mug in a mock salute. Here's to that. And if I do get a scratch, Doc, I'll be sure to come in with full emergency flares. As Pendic and his team filed out, Harland sat down beside him, still grinning. You really took them on a wild ride, didn't you? Gordy shrugged, glancing down at the faint glitter still on his arm from the alien bandages. Hey, it's nice to have people who care, even if they're ready to launch an intergalactic rescue mission over a paper cut. Harland chuckled, shaking her head. Who knows, maybe next time they'll take it down a notch. I think you might have just rewritten half their medical protocols. Happy to help, Gordy said, raising his mug. To aliens, medbays, and good old human resilience. As he took a long sip, he watched the alien medics bustling off with their Human Edition protocol, discussing the mysteries of head colds and man flew, as if they were strategizing a peace treaty. Gordy chuckled, feeling a strange warmth for his alien comrades. Sure, they were overzealous, but they were his teammates on this strange journey, glittering band-aids and all.